Hi guys, my name is Ashley and I'm a mom of 2 little girls. I have a 2.5-year-old toddler named Kylie, and I also have a 6-month-old baby named Mia. My toddler Kylie was just 6 months old when I personally first discovered this whole idea of using Montessori practices at home with an infant. I immediately fell in love with it and got right to work kind of figuring out what I needed to change about her environment to help promote a more independent and self-sufficient mindset for her even as a baby. So one of the most critical areas that I learned about that I started working on right away, and not only is it important in a Montessori environment, but it's just good for plain general baby health overall for any baby, regardless of parenting style, was this importance that my baby needed space to play and explore and just roll around. I distinctly remember that once this idea really set in for me, I sat back and I took a look around my house and I realized that there were just so many things that I did not need. Things that were restricting my baby's ability to explore and move. So from one busy parent to another, today I'd like to chat with you guys just a little bit about the notion of freedom of movement for a baby. So the first and simpler area when it comes to making sure that your baby has the ability to move and stretch and get all of the exercise that they need from the moment that they're born is what they're wearing. Babies, especially newborns, don't really need to be clothed in all of these super cute outfits that actually restrict their movement. Just a couple of examples that immediately come to my mind are jeans for babies. Those definitely are not very stretchy, and for a baby that maybe is learning to crawl, it could actually impede that ability. Same thing goes for dresses for girls, for babies who cannot walk yet. If you've ever seen a baby trying to crawl in a dress, you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. Their knees tend to get really caught up on the actual dress part of the outfit, and then they basically just kind of trip themselves forward. Also on that list are frilly tutus and just anything in general that is super baggy and adds extra layers that aren't really necessary. And one other very unnecessary item of clothing are shoes for a baby that can't even walk yet. And if you're wondering why, when babies start to learn to kind of scoot around on the ground, you'll notice that they often use their toes. They kind of like dig their toes into the carpet or the blanket or whatever they're laying on top of. And if they have shoes covering their feet, then they are effectively not able to use their toes at all. So what is the right type of clothing for a baby in order to enable them to stretch and move as much as they want to? It's very simple. A onesie by itself, or a onesie and a pair of pants or shorts made of a very breathable, light fabric are basically all that a baby needs to wear. Now, if the weather is a little bit colder, then of course you can add a light sweater just to keep your baby warm, and even a little pair of socks, thin socks with the little no-skid bumps on the bottom of them just to give your baby a little bit of extra grip. But beyond that, really, any type of other clothing choice is just for decor. Now, of course, it's okay to dress your baby up in cute outfits for pictures or for special occasions like holidays and family get-togethers and things like that. But for normal, simple, everyday wear at home, your baby just doesn't need anything fancy on, really. They're not going to notice, I promise you. Now, once you've addressed the clothing factor, the other very big area that you might want to take a look at and assess what the situation looks like in your own home right now is the existence and use of what we call baby holding devices or containers. I want you to just take a moment to think about the number of different devices that your baby is placed into on a daily basis. The list of these devices is so long, I had to write them down so that I wouldn't forget them all. We have things like boppy loungers, swings, exercisers, sit-me-up seats, bumbos, bouncy seats, swings, jumpers, strollers, high chairs, just to name a few. We have invented all of these things to hold babies so that we don't have to. And these devices by themselves are inherently not bad. Their negative impacts stem from their overuse. Now, it's not like a parent ever sets out to say, okay, I'm gonna make sure that I place my baby in his or her bumbo and swing and bouncy seat today for at least half of the day. But unfortunately, life gets busy, especially if you have other children running around the house and things to do, and it happens sometimes. Beyond those first few weeks of life, a baby is not really meant to be all curled up in this little fetal position anymore. They should be practicing stretching all of their limbs and rolling around and turning their head and lifting up their head and just feeling the weight of their body on the floor. When babies are placed into these devices for far too long, and especially for sleep, which is not recommended by the AAP, that's when you start to see a lot of these, unfortunately now very common health issues start to pop up, like flathead syndrome or torticollis. And in a lot of cases, it simply could have been prevented by allowing your baby to have that freedom of movement instead of being placed into the device. Another problem with your baby spending too much time in baby holding devices is the fact that they have impeded motor development. Babies learn to walk through lots and lots of practice. All of that tummy time, all of those little push-ups, every single time they turn their heads or stretch their bodies a little bit to look around to hear a sound that they heard across the room, all of those little movements add up. They are practice for the big show. So if your baby is confined in a device that is keeping them on their back and they can't turn themselves over, or if they're facing forward and unable to turn themselves around to look at something, they're missing out on those critical opportunities to stretch out their muscles. Your baby has to learn how to be able to push themselves up off of the floor in order to begin crawling. If their legs are kind of stuck in one particular position, like in a bumbo seat, for example, then they can't stretch their legs and learn how to get their legs up underneath them so that they can start to scoot forward. If they're stuck in an exerciser, it doesn't matter how many little activities have been set up for them to play with that they can spin around in 360 degrees. If your baby happens to see something across the room that they think is interesting, they can't go explore it. They are stuck right where they are. You have to imagine for just a moment how frustrating that might feel to a child where the entire world is brand new to them. They're taking in every last little bit of sensory information that they can, from the feel of the carpet or the coldness of a hardwood or tile floor, to the feeling of their own body weight as they lay on the floor, or the touch of their own bare skin. All of these things are very exciting to a baby, and by placing them into a baby holding device, they are having decreased sensory exploration opportunities. So if this is the first time that you're hearing any of this information, then I'm sure at this point in the video, you're probably feeling a little exasperated. You're kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do with my baby when I can't be holding him or her for 5 seconds of the day? Where am I supposed to put him or her? As I already mentioned, there are a couple of necessary evils, if you will, things that we really can't get around just for baby's safety, like a bassinet to sleep in when they're very young, or a crib if that's a sleeping arrangement that you choose to use. Although in a Montessori home, babies typically sleep in floor beds, and if you've not heard of that or seen one of those before, then I will be sure to link my video all about floor beds for you guys. Other devices that would be acceptable as long as they're not overused would be things like strollers or baby carriers. We need car seats for safe baby travel in the car, but other than that, if you don't need to hold your baby, there is nothing wrong with putting your baby on the floor for a few minutes to independently play and explore, so long as it is a safe space that is nice and clean where they won't injure themselves. So if you have carpeting in your house, then that makes things a lot easier. If you're not comfortable with placing your baby directly on the carpet, then you can always spread a thin blanket out and place your baby on top of that. If you do not have carpeting, if your house is primarily tile or hardwood flooring, then you can invest in something like a little play gym mat. I know that IKEA sells one for relatively cheap that you can purchase. Now, if you have other young children or larger pets in the house with your baby, and you do need to leave your baby unattended for a few minutes, then I would suggest making sure that there's at least one kind of baby-proofed area somewhere in your house that you can set your baby in. Now, depending on your house layout, this could very well be your baby's room. All you would need to do is add a little baby gate at the door, and then no one can get in or out while you're not there. If you have a multi-level house where running your baby to his or her room on another floor just kind of seems impractical, then there are a couple of other solutions that you could explore. The first that comes to mind are those extendable or foldable gates that you can purchase that enable you to kind of fence off one area of your house and make it like a little baby-proofed space that your baby is free to explore. In some parenting circles, people call this a yes space because they're not there telling your baby, no, you can't touch that constantly. And if you are short on space and you just need something to put your baby in for just a few quick minutes, one of the devices that I would suggest would be a pack and play. Although it is a much smaller kind of confined area for your baby, they do have the ability to still move their bodies around freely. So out of all of the possibilities, it's definitely the least of the evils. Okay, sorry, Mia just woke up from her nap and she decided she wanted to join us. So as I was saying, the only baby device that I can really justify in terms of entertainment and with respect to everything we've talked about so far is an activity gym. With an activity gym, your baby generally has plenty of space to lay on their back, to turn around from side to side. There's things for them to look at and grab at and practice those fine motor skills skills. They're not really physically restricted in any way, and that's what's important. So if you're looking around your house right now and you're noticing that you have 4, 5, 6 different baby holding devices and feeling a little bit guilty, don't be hard on yourself. Again, when I first discovered this, my first daughter was just about Mia's age actually. She was 6 months old, and I had definitely invested in a couple of those really large items. I think we had a Jumperoo, a Rock and Play before they were recalled, and also a Bumbo seat. So when I realized that yes, I was placing Kylie into a lot of these devices for longer than she probably should have been in there, I immediately I got rid of them all. I donated them all, and we haven't had a baby holding device other than a baby carrier and an activity gym in our house ever since. And while I only have experience right now with one baby and how that impacted her gross motor development, I will tell you that Kylie was walking proficiently by herself by 11 months old. And I really do think that a lot of that had to do with the fact that she was not placed into devices constantly. I distinctly remember as soon as I made that conscious switch and I got rid of all the devices, she was immediately spending a lot more time on her belly doing tummy time. And she went from kind of barely moving around on the carpet to suddenly pushing up and scooting herself all over the place. Just having that time for extra practice every single day throughout the day was critical. Now, I know there are probably some parents out there who have babies that did spend time in these devices, that were walking by their first birthday and they don't really see the connection. But that doesn't change the fact that there is good research out there that shows that these devices do more harm than good, especially when they're overused. So if you do have lots of baby devices right now and you're thinking about making a change, I know that some of them are much larger purchases. They probably cost a little bit of money, and it might be a lot harder to let these items go. But I encourage you to have strength and just do it. Make the jump. I know that I don't regret doing it, and I feel like it was one of the best decisions that I ever made, especially so early on in my Montessori journey. I will be sure to leave a couple of links to some good research studies down below if you're interested in reading a little bit more about this topic on your own from the experts. But if you have any questions, then feel free to leave them in the comments down below. And just in case you are new to my channel, I did want to let you know that this video is part of a larger series called Montessori at Home, which is aimed at providing practical tips and advice for busy parents like you and I for implementing Montessori philosophies at home with your children. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in learning more about, then you might consider subscribing to my channel so that you don't miss a new video, because I do upload a new one just like this one every single week. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.